and power. I'm going to say it one more time. Holy, righteous, truth, love, and power. These are just 5 words that describe Jesus' relationship to us and to God the Father. Holy, righteous, love, truth, and power. Jesus lives within us, but I think we forget. And so because we forget, we don't properly discern his relationship with us. Talked a little bit about that last week, or really yesterday. And because we forget, we don't properly discern how we're supposed to live. And so even though Jesus is in us, even though we are born again, even though the Spirit of God lives in us, even though we are the sons of God, it's as though we somehow lack knowledge or understanding or both concerning this Jesus that lives in us. And so there's a constant tug of war between the reality of who Christ is and what my life is supposed to be because of who Christ is, and who I actually am, most times in a denial of who Christ is. So he's there, but there's this tug of war. It's really a tug of war between the flesh and the spirit. There's always going to be that war, by the way. That war doesn't go away. You don't magically get to some point where the war doesn't exist. The war will always be there. Some people fail because they have an expectation that after a certain amount of time, the war should no longer exist. And so they're wondering why they're still in a battle. But the war will always exist. Why? Because the flesh is at enmity against the spirit. That means your flesh is an enemy against the spirit. And your flesh will continue to be. This is why you must always bring your flesh under subjection. You must always exercise dominion over the flesh. When you don't exercise dominion over the flesh, then the flesh is working to have dominion over you. And in any area where you fail to exercise the authority God has given over you, then your flesh will gain the ascendancy. Your flesh will be in charge, and you'll live according to your feelings, your emotions, your senses. You'll live according to your flesh, and you'll live defeated. And yet this battle goes on forever. There will be no time in life that the battle doesn't exist. There will be no time in life that the battle doesn't rage on. But the one who wins, you determine which one who wins. Now I'm sharing this with you because this morning we are dealing with part 2. Consider Jesus. I'm calling it Consider Jesus part 2. But what we're going to consider is Jesus as our substitute. Jesus was an unselfish substitute. In other words, everything he did for you and I. I said it yesterday when he went to the cross. He didn't go to the cross for himself. He went to the cross for you and I. Everything he did was to bring us into the family of God. Everything he did to fulfill the plan and purpose of God. He did nothing for himself. He did everything for us. And so many people don't realize what he's accomplished. Now turn to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2, and let's look at verse 1. Now remember, I said everything he's done for us. There's nothing that he's done for himself. So everything he did for us. Jesus is, you could call him the unselfish substitute. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1. And you have he made alive. My Bible says you have he quickened. You have he made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, where in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. I want you to underline that. The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Okay, what does this tell us? It tells us that the prince of the power of the air is the spirit at work in those that disobey. Yep, that's simple. That the prince of the power of the air is the spirit that works in